Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. You have been the one. You have been the one for me. Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye.
All right, a very good morning to you. It's Breakfast with Pat and Heels on this wet and wild Friday morning, Heels, and the weather sort of matches the mood around town at the moment because it's been the night of the long knives of two of the most beloved figures in Australian sport are jobless this morning. As we all know by now, if you're just waking up, the Broncos are looking for another coach after their urgent internal review. After this season's 12th placed finish, recommended the sacking of coach Kevin Walters, and so it was done last night.
Oh, the deep dive into the Broncos, it revealed a scapegoat about 2 foot down.
Yeah.
Hey, where's the depth?
Yeah.
Surely there's more there that's got to come out. It was a top-to-bottom review. Who did it? What was their scope? And why is the findings, surely the findings are not just pertaining to Kevin Walters?
No, well, apparently he's going to front at a press conference this morning, so he's issued a statement. But, yeah, there's blood on the hands of several at Red Hill this morning. One of the, as I said, one of the most beloved Broncos who won 5 premierships, played 11 seasons for the club and are now had a 50% coaching record, but the 12th place finish. And missing the finals 3 times in 4 years wasn't good enough. And for such a high-profile club who hasn't won a premiership since Shane Webcke and Lockie lifted that famous trophy back in 2006, someone has got to go. And rather than sack half the team, who underperformed dramatically this year, they've sacked the coach.
Got to make modifications everywhere. I want to see many more findings from this review. Like, the football structure's all wrong, for a start. Plus, there's no football presence on the board. Darren Lockyer, my mail says, was away, wasn't partaking in the review. The one football person on your board, it's a public company, so there's a lot more governance that they have to be concerned with. But the one football person didn't sit on the reviews. What's that? So we got to double that up. We got to get another football person on that board so that the football discussions are stronger than they are at the moment because, as you quite rightly said, it's a club that's underperforming. And yet the coach gets chopped.
Yep. Well, look, as I said, there's been 2 high profiles. One of them, again, is the one that we expected from Red Bull. They've parted ways with Daniel Ricciardo, almost surely ending his 14-year career at the pinnacle of world motorsport. I'll go through that a little later on. But this one hit us all like a bolt from the blue. I think it was my brother first picked it up from the Courier Mail, and he said, Kevy's just been sacked. And, there was, plenty of phone calls, etc., followed that. Pete Bedell was the one who broke the story for the Courier Mail, and he spoke to SEN last night.
I'm told that he was informed tonight around 6 p.m, so it's only recent, and that is the finale for Kevin Walters. It's a sad finale because he got the Broncos to the grand final just 12 months ago, but of course it's been a horror season for the Broncos this year, and that triggered a club-wide review of the club, and I'm told that review was not glowingly positive, of course, about Kevin Walters, and it's led to this decision today. Kevin Walters has been sacked as Broncos coach, effective immediately.
Now, a good football director can have a look at the results of that review and know whether it's rectifiable or not. But no one's done it. Have you tried to Google Michael Collins, the rugby supremo who headed the review?
Nah.
He doesn't come up. Doesn't come up in the first 5, Michael Collins. Mate, he's a Waikato development officer. He had 73 appearances for the Waikato Chiefs.
Yep. Then
he became a development rugby man. Then he was a rugby scrum coach for Taranaki. And then he's the CEO of Taranaki. That a supremo?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly right.
How the hell did they find him?
I know.
So and there's no mention of a corporate world that he's run reviews before, but he's one that hasn't got rugby league in him.
Yep.
So how does he know the best practice? So do the interviews fine with a panel of football brains as well, knowing what the best practice is. What is it? Melbourne, Penrith. And how far short are we here with the Broncos? And how do we get this right? Not cut. Well, they just stopped at 1 cut by the sound of it. So I want to see Michael Collins at the press conference this morning. I want to see Carl Morris. I want to see Dave Donaghy. And I want to see, I don't really want to see Kevy, but I believe he's going to be there.
I can't understand that. Anyway, look, we've got a stack of texts already. Suncorp Car Insurance open line 1355 on this dramatic day in sport. We're on grand final eve, and yet this is front and back page. The text line is 0467 736 736. Stu from Jim Boomer. Morning all. What a shambles at the Broncos. I accept the decision for Kevy to be rissoled, but I won't accept that the chairman and the players who gave nothing this year get to stay. We're a pretend big club run by clowns. That's from, Stu has had a real, he's come from the fence to start off. Boys, this one from JB, I can't even piece together what I want to say, but this almost sums it up. And it forms the letters Broncos, beyond comprehension. The R for really unexpected. O for outrageous decision. N for never saw it coming. C for completely shocked. O for overwhelming disbelief. S for stunned silence. Josh, you're echoing the thoughts of plenty of people around the southeast this morning. Kevy, from his statement, Heels. Aside from playing here, it's been the greatest thrill and honour of my life to have coached the Broncos. Coaching in the NRL takes a toll, not just on the coach, but also their family. It's time for me to step away and spend some quality time with my loved ones who have supported me all the way through over the last 4 years. I'm grateful to the club for providing me with the opportunity to be head coach, and we've come a long way from the wooden spoon to last year's run to the grand final. I wish the team and the club all the best. We've heard the usual platitudes from CEO and chairman. But, look, I've got a feel for him. And, look, I've been an unashamed and unabashed ally, a friend over a long period of time, loved what he did. I love his passion. But, look, if this is the way they've gone, Hills, they've now made the rod for their own back. They get rid of Kevin, they've got to pay him out. He's contracted for another couple of years, so there's $1 million plus that the payout will be.
Well, they're not.
After they paid Seabold out.
Yeah, they're not immune to payouts. They're paying more out than Gus Gould does around the football world now. That is an outrageous payment to Seabold. It was an outrageous contract for Seabold. So here we've now got a chairman that is not a football man, not a rugby league man, but he offered a 5-year deal. He oversaw a 5-year deal to Anthony Seabold, cut him off early, paid out outrageously, and sacked Wayne Bennett. Seems to still be going okay, Benny.
No.
So he's gone, and a CEO who they both touched the wooden spoon like Kevy has.
No.
So I'm not sure that all those departments are running safely either.
Yeah. Yep,
That's the second scoring shot tomorrow.
Okay.
That takes the Brisbane Lions to 7-0.
Okay.
Joe has kicked the behind from 80 metres.
Yep.
And Charlie sneaks one, and we're 7-0 up.
All right. Well, speaking of country roads, I think we found one on a country road.
I saw what you did there.
Broncos legend Shane Webcke has joined us. We're thankful for his time this morning. He's headed back home this morning. And, you're like the rest of us, Webby, just in complete shock.
I'll tell you, wonderful segue, by the way. But, yeah, no, completely and utterly befuddled by it, to be honest. Now, I'll predicate anything I'm going to say with any of us who are not on the inside of the team and playing in the Broncos. We are guessing as to whether Kevy's the most wonderful coach that ever existed or he's not. But if I look at it, I just stand back as a bloke who loves the Broncos, right? And obviously used to play there and all the rest of it. And I think, well, when did it become our way to do things like this? And now, if Kevy's got another year running his contract and all that, let's look at what he's done. We went from being wooden spooners to, seconds away from winning the grand final. Now, none of us are happy with the season just gone, and particularly Kevy. But I think that the smarter thing to do would have been, and the right thing to do would have been to let Kevy coach next year. If he, because likely it's not, this year is the wake-up call that we needed. We've got a good, strong club again, a wonderful roster chock full of great players. Likely it's not, the wake-up call that was this season will lead them to bigger and better things next year and perhaps, getting back to where we know they can be. I just find it Yeah, well, I just don't know. And the other thing I always think, well, if you're going to make a decision like this, you make it because you're going to something better. Well, who's better? Who's available right now? Who's going to be a better fit than Kevy Walters? I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
well,
that's a trickier question.
Yeah, well, the Drums were beating Madge Maguire even a few weeks ago. So the New South Wales coach.
Mate, he coaches New South Wales. Spare me that.
And
I've got nothing against him. But is that where we get rid of Kevy Walters for that? I don't think so.
Yeah. And was there any approach to you, Webby, to sit on the panel that would review the Broncos?
No.
Well, this is what my point is. My point is there's no football on this. There's no rugby league on that panel that I can find that did this review.
Well, I didn't know the makeup of the panel, so there you go. But
I can't find it.
Well, that's also ridiculous as well. Now, you could argue, and they will argue, that if you're not emotionally involved and attached to it, you're going to make a better decision. Well, I don't think that. I don't think our game has ever operated like that. The best decisions are made, I think, not emotively, but certainly when you're a stakeholder and in terms of either being a player or love our game or whatever it is. But you can't be divorced from it and make that decision. And I think that's why you come up with a decision like this, to be absolutely frank.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know there's a deal of urgency around any review because, after November 1, that's when you can start negotiating with players who you can add to your roster. But this just seems to be, a massive overreaction. The general consensus, Webby, was that, give him a couple of months into next year to see whether he can turn it around. I mean, you got to remember that, Reynolds and Walsh had a long time out this year. Reynolds admitted that, he and Mam didn't get to play too many games together. And you've got a list that includes Walsh, Haas, Carrigan, Reynolds, Cobbo, Staggs and Mam. I mean, boy, oh boy. And then you lose Farnworth, Flegler, Capel and Palliser at the end of last year. I mean, I don't know.
Kevy, Paddy, you're exactly right. And I just don't see any sense in a decision like this because of exactly what you just said. The common sense way to do this, the logical way to do it, and also the right way to have done it was exactly as you say. And no one would talk about it then. Give Kevy a chance. Like he got us to that grand final. Like that's the coach. He coached that side, and they went within a whisker of winning it. Right now, he's obviously the coach that presided over last year's poorer showing. But if you consider those two things together, and the roster and the way the club has come back. Why wouldn't you just let him go next year? And if it's not working out, you say, well, Kevy, you've had your chance, you got to go. Kevy wouldn't mind that because he's a realist as well. If he's not getting it out of him, well, he's got to go. He understands that. That's the nature of our game. So Kevy wouldn't have a problem. Our fans wouldn't have a problem because the club would have done the right thing, and the right thing is to give the man a go. And the general public wouldn't be surprised that they said next year, well, Kevy, it's not working out, you got to go. But instead, what they've done is sack him now, like it feels like it's out of the blue, and created a maelstrom of drama and stuff that's going to get talked about for weeks now, and put the whole place under pressure again. Now, and the other thing I've read, and this is online stuff, so you don't know whether to believe this or not, but they were talking to Adam Reynolds, and Adam Reynolds was saying they did not know that he's heard that through the public realm, and the players did not know. If that is true, that is the most unprofessional thing I reckon I've ever heard that club come up with. I sincerely hope that is not the case.
See that football knowledge right there. What you just said then, Webby, is what has been lacking. You're able to assess the reaction and highlight overreaction. And in that one comment you made there, you considered the fans, the club, the way we do things, and the performance on the field last year. That is very rectifiable. And this panel
Absolutely.
Has not produced anything like that.
No, and I just, quite aside from anything, there's nothing logical about this. It just doesn't make any sense. And it does, and I don't know that you need to have a football brain to work that out. Like, Kevy more than anyone understands that his job is about performance, right?
Yes.
And he knows he's under pressure, but no one could reasonably look at his performance and the tenure of his coaching at the Broncos and say that this is justifiable, because it's not. And that's a simple thing. if you're going to make a decision like this, a tough decision on a club legend, and if you got to make it, you're going to make it, and Kevy will accept that. But this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If they were making it, as we've talked about, if they were making this halfway through next year and said, mate, it's not working, well, Kevy's not going to argue. No one's going to argue because that's a reasonable thing to happen. This is not reasonable. That's my view.
Well, look, we've got a couple of calls. Braden saying, well said, Webby. Agree with you 100%. Percy, morning, guys. Webby is right. It wasn't a smart or right decision, but in business, let's not be mistaken, it is a business. Smart and right don't always come into consideration. Look, there's going to be a heap of takes on this, Percy. But the one that interests me, Webby, is like he said in the statement that was issued, coaching in the NRL takes a toll, not just on the coach, but also their family. Time for me to step away, spend some quality time with my loved ones who've supported me all the way over the last 4 years. Well, you and I both know that's spin.
It can't be anything else. And that's not saying that's a lie, what he's saying. It's true. But that wouldn't make Kevy Walters step away. I promise you that. And not unless there was something serious happening, right? Okay, we understand that. But what I'm saying is that's Kevy's known that the whole time he's been a coach, so that's not something that's come up yesterday, and it does smell like now they're trying to sort of put nice, pretty wallpaper over it and call it something that it's not.
Yeah.
Well, if you get, I see that as a terrible weakness as well. If you're going to make it, if you're going to make a tough call it for what it is. Don't try and turn it into something that it's not. Yeah. And that I think is a mistake as well. If that is in fact the case, if they're going to come out today and say, oh, this is a mutual thing, we're all happy, well, you're going to have a fairly difficult time convincing people of that, I would say.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate your time, mate. I know it's tough for all the ex-players, right? Because like most of you, you're all great allies and friends of Kevy.
We are, Paddy. You're right about that, but we're also realistic.
Yep.
And this is the point I would make. If I thought this was the right thing, if I thought sacking Kevy was the right way to go, I'd support it, because one thing we all know is none of us are bigger than the joint and never have been. No players are, no ex-players are, no one is, right? So the good of the club has got to come first. I just don't think that this serves the best interests of the club. I don't think anyone wins out of this, and I think you could have achieved the same result in a very, very different way, and in a logical, order fashion, like we talked about, doing this year, give it a chance and the rest of it, and then none of us would be having these conversations. That's the right way to do. That's the right way to run a footy club. It's the right way to run anything, So I and more is going to come to light about how this has all happened or not, and all the rest of it, and then we'll probably have a clearer view of it. But on the surface, it to me looks like a knee-jerk decision made by people who don't understand what our club's about and what our game's about.
Well said, Webby.
Well said, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
We really appreciate your time. Shane Webcke joining us.
Thanks, man. No worries at all.
Thanks, mate. 254 games, 4 premierships, heart and soul of the club, lifetime Bronco. We'll be back.
Give it a shot. Oh, we're halfway there. Oh, give me all my prayer. Take my hand.
Bon Jovi, that's Jasper Fletcher's.
Talking to the boys at half-time.
Hey, we're here for Hyundai. We're here for Suncorp Car Insurance. The open line is 13 13 55. You can text us. There's been a million texts this morning, 0467 736 736. Just a quick one before we go to Cos. Broncos players, I think they had the game won and then lost the grand final in the last 10 minutes. Not the coach's fault. Players injured, unable to play. Not the coach's fault. Player list weak in backup players, not the coach's fault. Good on Kevy. If he did quit and not pushed, well, I don't think that's right. Maybe the club has to actually look past the coach and ask the overpaid prima donnas what they're doing, and also the board and hierarchy maybe need a broom put through it. That's from the Bundy Titan. Here's Hayasagi in the Manikato tonight at the Valley as he stepped, and yes, it was McLaren, so he's answering a whole heap of questions. Corey Parker, a very good morning to you.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you going?
Good. That escalated fairly quickly, didn't it?
Oh, boy. What about the news overnight that all come to our attention? Incredible, wasn't it?
So what are your thoughts, mate? We've had Webby on this morning. He said, look, if Kevy had to go, well, so be it. But this is not the Broncos' way of handling things.
Yeah, look, my thoughts are this. I've always been one for, if you're making decisions for the betterment of the club, they're always going to be the right ones. Whether you agree with that or don't agree with it, it's a completely different story. But if they're made for the betterment of the club, they're going to be the right ones. Now, if you connect the dots, the review, I believe, was finalised Friday night, and here we are talking about. Not Friday night. A couple of nights ago.
Thursday night.
Wednesday night.
Yeah. The coach has been sacked. Now, I've got to assume, and this is only an assumption, that the reports coming back from that internal review, which for people who don't know what an internal review is, it's a confidential process where each player, each person within the organisation sits with somebody, and at the end of it, they come back with what they feel is a sufficient answer or where the club is at. Now, the fact that they've now sacked Kevin Walters last night would suggest to me that the review has come back against Kevin Walters, because only a number of weeks ago we heard from Dave Donaghy, and he spoke about how Kevin's going to be the coach next year, etc., but that was before the review had come back. Since the review's come back, he's now been sacked. So I'm only connecting the dots. I'm only looking at it, but I've got to assume that the review didn't come back in favour of Kev. Is that how you see it?
Well, yeah, particularly when only a week or two ago the CEO comes out in favour of Kevin. So Kevin will be there. And, we all thought that, he'll be given a couple of months to prove that he can turn this disaster around. And if that's not the case, he's gone.
No, that was how we sort of looked at it myself. But,
and then Webby this morning then said, because then it is, Kev would be happy to go, and it's justifiable in the decision, but at the moment it's a bit premature.
Yeah, well, again, Heels, I mean, Kevin's been there 4 years, so to say it's premature, I don't know, is 4 years enough to make a decision like that? I'm not, you've got to have your own opinion on that. But again, I just got to lean on the fact that the review that's come back from the players and from all the people, I would suggest is not in favour of the coach. Otherwise, if it was strongly in favour of the coach, well, we're not having this conversation, I wouldn't have thought.
But it's not yet for the betterment of the club. Do you think it's been so swift because they've got someone in mind?
It's a good question. I mean, if you asked me this, about 4 weeks ago, there was, Madge Maguire's name was getting thrown around, and that obviously got put to bed when Donaghy came out and said, no, Kevin's our coach for next year, etc., A club like Brisbane or any professional organisation, you don't make decisions without having somebody in mind to replace. Now, Madge Maguire's the name that we're hearing. Whether that is the case or not is obviously yet to be seen. But there's a couple other people in the on the coaching merry-go-round that also could do the role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts there? Webby wasn't a big fan of Madge Maguire because he's an alignment of New South Wales, etc. But he looks like, I don't know, to use a crude term, the hard ass that they need.
Yeah, look, I've heard some players and ex-players and people in the media talk about, you can't have somebody with New South Wales coaching the Brisbane Broncos. I personally think that's a load of rubbish. Yeah. If you look like that, only a number of years ago, Brisbane were hunting hard for Craig Bellamy. Well, for those who don't know, Craig Bellamy is New South Wales. He's coached New South Wales, so it was okay back then. Why is it not okay now? Again, I go back to the same story. If you're making decisions for the betterment of the club, they're going to be the right ones and the easy ones to make. If that means it's Madge Maguire, well, that's Madge Maguire. If it's Billy Bloggs or James Smith, it's that person. I just think it doesn't matter where people come from if they're right man for the job. That's my opinion on it anyway.
No, well said, mate. And then there's the board, mate. This was supposed to be a deep dive into the Broncos structures, and Darren Lockyer is on this board that has sacked Wayne Bennett maybe twice, but offered Anthony Seibold a 5-year deal and then a massive payout, and now sack Kevy. Are they doing their job well enough?
Well, that's a conversation to be had with them, but the board has remained the same, as you just touched on, right throughout that process. And they've employed and sacked, and still making those same decisions. So, Brisbane is 51% owned by News Limited.
Yes.
So obviously there's a fair swing what goes on there. But again, everyone's got an opinion around Kevin Walters and the Broncos. He's been there 4 years. He's been to the finals once. That was a grand final. And we all love Kev. Kev's a great mate of mine. But I just got to lean back on this internal review. It obviously didn't come back in favour of the coach. If it did, we're not having this conversation. That's how I see it.
Yeah, clearly the players have turned on him. That's all we can read. Hey, listen, we better talk about a bit of footy. We've been on Kevy all morning.
Oh, right. There's footy on, is there?
There's two very, very good prelim finals. And I reckon tonight, and even though the bookies are disagreeing, they say, it's all set up for a Melbourne-Penrith grand final. But I reckon tonight's match, Storm and Roosters, will be a beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a real physical, confrontational affair, particularly in the opening 20. The Storm are a team that have never, ever beaten themselves. Like, if you're going to beat the Storm, you've got to work extremely hard and you just got to play better than the Storm. I don't think that's going to be the case tonight. I think the two teams that have sat back and had a rest over the last weekend will come out of the blocks nice and hard. They're experienced. This is the Melbourne Storm's 15th prelim final. They know how to get there. They know how to get it done. I think they'll get it done. But I think it's going to be a almighty first half. I think it's going to be a real fiery affair, and I feel as though the Storm can have enough class and structure in the back end of the game to get the job done.
And the Roosters better have the ability to get out of that fiery affair, and they're going to need supreme fitness, as you said to us earlier in the week, to sort of make the most of their attacking flair and get Melbourne a little unsettled, which is so difficult to do. Are they fit enough?
Oh, definitely fit enough. But where Melbourne beat teams is they get you in the cycle. So they get you in what that means for people who don't understand. So when the ball's in play for long periods of time, and then you've got Harry Grant coming at you asking questions, and you sort of, you're on the back foot. Then you've got Jerome Luai. Then they play real high, up-tempo style of football. And if you are coming off set starts, it's very difficult to get into that cycle, and you do have control over how the game is played. But Cam Munster said it a couple of weeks ago. The referees, they adjudicate these games completely different to all the other games. So they will put the whistle in the pocket. They'll let the players play for long periods of time and get that fatigue in. And if that is the case, I just think that Melbourne will be too classy and too good in that area.
Look, I'm looking forward to tonight. Perhaps I think tomorrow night may be a little lopsided. Even though the Sharks have been brave to get here, they have been literally on a roller coaster, highs and lows this season. Nico Hines under pressure. How do you see this one folding?
Yeah, a little bit like you're saying, Paddy, to be honest. I mean, you're coming up against, I think, the best team in the modern era. And they've had a week off and they've got all their players. Every one of their players is fit and ready to go. I think whilst the Sharks, absolutely earn the right to be in the prelim final, I just think, when you look at the Sharks, if you can contain their back five, which is their weapons, they come out of their own end. They have Jesse Ramian and Katoa and Mulatalo and the like. If you can contain them within kicking game, which Luai and obviously Cleary can do, their forwards don't have the grunt, I don't believe, to match it with Penrith, and I think Penrith will just get the job done. And it could get ugly, I think. It could really get ugly. I hope for Cronulla and all the Sharkies fans that it's not. But when you're playing Penrith Panthers, who are looking down the barrel of going to their 5th consecutive grand final, I think they'll get there.
Yeah, but what are they planning, do you reckon? They could be... This is one of the great efforts from such an ugly season that no one's given them a chance all the way through the year, and they're in the 4, Cronulla. So what is the plan for the Sharks?
Well, yeah. The thing is, whilst it's a massive game, the biggest of their season, you can't just all of a sudden completely change the way you've been playing all season, because that'll throw everything into chaos. I expect them to play the style of footy that we've seen. I expect them to play, that sort of, throw the ball around, offload, etc. But if that does not come off, and that's their only sort of play, well, then what have they got? I've just sort of gone through their strengths in the team, back five, etc. Whereas on the flip side, Penrith, well, I personally can't see a weakness in their outfit, which makes them extremely difficult to beat. So it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a really difficult one for the Sharks. They can win, absolutely, but they're going to have to do a lot of things right, and a lot of things are going to have to fall their way.
Right. You, like just about everyone out there, are thinking it's going to be a Storm Panthers grand final.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm scratching I just can't believe the Penrith Panthers, with the loss of players they've had over the last 5 years, will potentially play in 5 straight grand finals. I played 16 seasons at a very successful club and played in 2. Some of these guys absolutely don't know anything else.
Yeah.
They think playing grand finals is what footy's about.
Yeah,
it's
also
unfair.
been losing best players. It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
no, you're spot on.
Hey,
Like Isaiah Yeo and Cleary and Edwards and that, they
kick
just
out.
think this is the norm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, in training, the Panthers, for example, are they going to have different strategies next week for Melbourne Storm than they have for Cronulla this week? And over the last couple of months, have they just been doing little bits and pieces on what they might need in a grand final, as well as the opposition for this week?
Yeah, sort of. But I heard Ivan Cleary talk last week or the week before, and it really sort of rung home to me was their game plan, whether it's now or back in round 1, is a game plan that can win big games.
Yep.
So they don't have to change a lot. They might zero in on a few little sort of minor details on the Melbourne Storm, but their game plan played in round 1 is the same game plan similar to what they do will be played now. It just played at a higher intensity, and it's been able to succeed in the big games.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a bit of a difference. When you see game plans or you hear teams talk of game plans, if you've got a game plan that is able to win a big game, well, you don't have to all of a sudden reinvent the wheel come September to try and win the competition.
No.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks, Cos. Really appreciate it. And then for Spitwater, your predictions are that we will be seeing a Storm Panthers grand final. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, boys.
Spitwater high-pressure cleaners designed and manufactured strong in Australia for tough Australian jobs. We'll take a break and we'll be back to talk more AFL grand final with the voice, Gerard Whateley.